Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to another update of my 2020 election model. Remember, first Monday of every month, I also cover my own personal forecast. So you can see that from last week's update, where I also covered the model. This is the first forecast where Minnesota has been, or the first time my model has said, yeah, Minnesota could flip to the Republicans. Same thing with New Hampshire. I'm not sure about Nevada, at least in the format that I have. For right now, I'm going to consider expected share other. That's going to be both any third-party candidates, aka Howard Schultz, and anyone else. I don't expect that. That would be a little bit above where a third-party candidate would be expected to be polling at as of this time. Generally, up until you reach the primaries, any third-party candidate is going to get 15 to 20% of the expected forecast. I think we can all remember the curious case of the candidate known as D's Nuts from 2016. And yes, I said that out loud. Yeah. Anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about why I think my model is reacting this way to the post-Mueller stuff. And I think it has to do with how I'm allocating data. So, as we all know, I consolidate polls. That way the most recent polls take precedence, and it's likely and registered voter only. As of right now, let me go ahead and pull that up. We've only got one poll from this week. This poll, and I did update this over the weekend. All this factored into last week's. I don't have enough general election polls just yet to start consolidating, but a few more weeks and I definitely will. I've consolidated stuff from the past, but there's just not enough to truly actually actively consolidate. So really all we've got is this Rasmussen poll and the average from last week, which was a really good week for Donald Trump. As we can see here, he was above 45%. And that's reasonably good, and last year's mean was actually not that bad for Donald Trump, at least the polling data that I had that month, or that year. So, no, it's not that bad. And this is going to remain in place just because I don't think combining it with 2019 is a good idea. So, in quarter one, he was at 44, and the Democrats, he was at 44, his disapproval was there. But this is not a bad approval rating to have, contrary to popular belief. His approval rating is not that low. Of course, Rasmussen is on the high end of what you would expect. This may be a little bit below. So, assuming 45 is the average, right? You'd expect between 3% and 5% in either direction, and that puts him at basically to be the wiggle room, and that means he could be as low as 40 or as high as 50 with the 80% confidence, as low as 42, as high as 48. And then corresponding numbers there. So this is on the outside of the high end. This is just barely outside the high end of the confidence interval for, 80% confidence of outcome, 80% outcome. The 80% center. 95% confidence, I would say, would be within 3 points of this. 80% would be within 5. Anything outside of that is highly unlikely. There's basically 10% on either side that this can fall under. So this is just on the outside of what I would consider acceptable. And plus we need to determine whether or not he's actually increasing based off of other polls. We just don't have them just yet. In addition, again, the Mueller report generally helped him out. I should get rid of that one. this Arizona's weird, but I could go in and out and in and out. If you want the polls only, there's this, and obviously Donald Trump is not doing well there. The forecast includes a lot of fundamentals. Whether or not you want to count that as correct, I personally use the fundamentals. That's why I have it as the forecast, not just the polling average. So yeah, do I honestly think this is what the map's going to look like? No. I have reason to be skeptical, but at the very least, it is interesting to look at where fundamentals would put this race based off polling, as well as the fact that incumbents tend to do about 3% better than their first election, combined with the fact that the economy is doing relatively strong. We're not that far away from breaking the all-time highs in the market, and it looks like we're chugging right along towards those, so that could happen in the next couple of weeks. GDP continues to grow, generally stronger than expected. Unemployment continues to be low. Consumer confidence continues to be high. Stuff like that. It's hard to actually foresee Trump losing in that environment. Now, who's this? Now, before I go any further, I guess that now that I'm at the end of kind of my spiel, I want to talk a little bit about who I think the most likely Republicans and Democrats are to, or who the most likely Democrats are to defeat Donald Trump, cover a little bit of why that is. Oh yeah, Maine also flipped. And I'm going to go ahead and show what it looks like without the colors, or without the shading, just to make it clear. Because I think that would be useful. That way you can actually see what it is. And remember, the colors are in the model are a percentage range rather than, whoops, I kind of messed that one up, rather than a confidence interval, which what I say is the forecast. When I show my own forecast, it's a confidence interval. Now, who are the best Democrats to actually challenge Donald Trump in the general? Well, I'm going to break this off into 3 tiers. Someone who would arguably be a slight favorite to win the election, and when I say slight, I mean slight. You could make the argument that it's break even, but I'll be generous and say slight favorite. Then, who would be the favorite to win the popular vote, however, would be an underdog in the Electoral College. And then the last one will be slight underdogs regardless of whether you're talking popular vote. Whew. Sorry about that. Couldn't catch myself. Would be slight underdogs in the popular vote and would be just straight underdogs in the Electoral College. So Biden is obviously the Democrats' top challenger. And we're talking he would be able to compete everywhere. You know, he'd be able to make this map look competitive and potentially flip some states. The problem is, I don't think he's going to get through a Democratic primary. I don't think he can do it these days. You know, he's got that whole creepy Uncle Joe thing, and Democrats are not going to, they're not going to be big fans of that. He's got the problem of being far too moderate for the Democratic Party. And that's the thing about party primaries, is they push candidates to go more extreme than the center, and then for the general election they have to pivot back towards the center. So a candidate like Biden is going to not have a lot of ground to stand on. He has a very long history. He's not exactly a progressive. You know, some people will say he's not exactly a moderate, but if we're being 100% honest, he's kind of a moderate. And he was chosen as Obama's vice president because, number one, he had foreign policy experience, but number two, he was seen as a moderate. So you have to account for all of that, okay? That said, I think he would be a slight favorite. Bernie Sanders would probably do reasonably well in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, not so much so in Ohio and Iowa, and he may lose ground in the South and the Southwest. So there's obviously a path for Donald Trump to reach that, you know, that coveted 270 without Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. And those are the three states that are the Democrats' easiest road to victory. And in fact, the truth is, Trump only needs one of those three states. Doesn't matter which one. This is, of course, assuming he wins the second congressional district in the case of Wisconsin. Which, even then, the Republicans control the majority of House delegations, so even then it doesn't actually matter. So the Democrats not only have to sweep all three of those, but they also can't lose in states like Virginia, Colorado, Nevada. They could probably get away with Nevada. But then again, if they're losing Nevada, they're probably losing a state like Virginia. They're probably losing Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania anyway. So they can't afford to lose those states either. It's kind of a delicate trade-off. So this brings me to the third tier of Democratic candidates who are just the ones who are kind of unimpressive or who would play right into Donald Trump's hands or worse. And you could argue Bernie Sanders falls into that category. You could also argue he goes into the Joe Biden category. That's why I think it's reasonable to split the difference and say he'd probably wind up doing the exact same thing as Clinton, which is winning the popular vote, or at least a plurality of the popular vote, and losing the Electoral College. The other tier of Democrats are your Beto O'Rourke's, your Kamala Harris's, your John Delaney's, your Hickenloopers, those types. The ones who either would run a very uninspiring campaign, both for Democrats, but also for independents. The candidates who would be all too willing to play Trump's game, which you're not beating him in. And this isn't saying that I think Trump is the best at being an attack dog. The problem is he has no shame. He doesn't care if you attack him. You know, remember when the whole hot mic Billy Bush moment on Access Hollywood was caught? Yeah, he apologized for it, but he kind of wrote it off saying it's locker room talk, and he's not wrong. Actually, locker room talk can be much, much more disgusting than that. That was tame compared to what happens in a locker room. And I wish I was kidding. Basically, anyone who says that it wasn't locker room talk has never actually been in a locker room. Period. But immediately after he said, oh, that's locker room talk, he said, but Bill Clinton has done much worse. You know, he immediately turned it back and used it as an attack. And that's the problem. If you actually do get him, with an aha, gotcha moment, he's going to come right back. He's good at it. I don't think the Democrats realize just how good he is at that. And again, he dominates the media cycle. He abused free media in 2016. And he's continued to do so. And I don't think the mainstream media, the 24-hour news cycles, figured it out yet. And the Democrats in this third tier, which I've listed a few of them, they're going to fall into that trap of playing the game that Donald Trump wants them to play. Mm-hmm. And I'm skeptical of their chances to win. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Bye.